My dad destroyed my $3,400 laptop before my promotion pitch, so I used his sabotage to rise. I've gone back and forth for weeks about whether to even post this, because part of me still feels like I'm betraying my family just by telling the truth. But the other part of me knows that if I don't say it somewhere, it's just going to rot inside me until I explode. I grew up with a dad who's always had this weird, competitive energy toward me. Not in the typical sports rivalry kind of way, but in a quieter, darker way that I didn't have words for until I was an adult. I'm in my late 20s now, and ever since I was a teenager, I could feel that when something went well for me, he'd find a way to cut it down. It could be subtle comments about how lucky I was, or how I thought I was better than everyone, or sometimes more direct things like making fun of me in front of relatives when I achieved something. My mom always brushed it off as that's just how he jokes, but as I got older I realized it wasn't funny. The most recent and most devastating example happened about 2 months ago. I work in a pretty competitive industry where promotion opportunities don't come around often. I'd been grinding for years, putting in insane hours, taking on projects nobody else wanted, and finally my boss told me there would be an opening for a higher position. I was invited to give a pitch to the senior leadership team on a project I'd been developing. It was the chance I'd been waiting for. That pitch was basically my shot at proving I was ready to step up. I poured everything I had into it. I built a full deck, wrote talking points, gathered data, and spent weeks refining it. I worked on my personal laptop because it was faster than the company-issued one, and honestly, I trusted it more. I'd saved up for over a year to buy that laptop, $3 for $100, because I wanted something powerful enough to handle heavy programs and keep me efficient. It wasn't just a laptop to me. It was my workhorse and, in a way, a symbol of how much I'd invested in myself. The night before the pitch, I was staying at my parents' house because my car had been in the shop and they live closer to the office. I was sitting at the kitchen table, rehearsing my slides, headphones in, just focused. My dad walked by and made some comment I barely registered about me, thinking I'm some big executive now. I brushed it off, didn't even respond because I didn't want to get into it. A little while later, I stepped out to take a call from a coworker. I was gone maybe 15 minutes. When I came back, my laptop was on the floor. The screen was shattered, the casing dented. It looked like it had been slammed. My dad was sitting in the living room watching TV, like nothing happened. I freaked out. I asked him what happened and he said, "It slipped. Maybe if you weren't so careless with your stuff you wouldn't have this problem." The thing is, my laptop was on the table, plugged in when I left. There's no way it just slipped. I felt sick because I knew, deep down, he had done it on purpose. I tried turning it on. Nothing. Completely dead. All of my work, my slides, my notes, everything was on that machine. I hadn't backed it up because I'd been so consumed in preparing, and my cloud storage had been maxed out. I just sat there staring at the broken screen like my whole future had been yanked out from under me. My mom came in when she heard the commotion and told me to calm down, that it wasn't the end of the world, and maybe I was overreacting. She gave my dad this look that told me she knew what had happened, but she didn't say anything. That made it worse. It felt like my own family was siding with the person who just tried to ruin me. That night, I barely slept. I kept running through options. Should I call in sick and try to reschedule? Should I admit I'd lost everything? Should I just wing it? Around 3 a.m., I made a decision. I would go in and own the situation. I woke up, got ready, and instead of trying to reconstruct the pitch, I wrote out on paper the main points I remembered. I told myself that the years I'd put into this project weren't erased just because my laptop was gone. I knew this material better than anyone. The slides were supposed to support me, not replace me. When I got to the office, I asked if I could go last in the lineup to give myself more time. I told them straight up that I had a technical failure and didn't have my deck, but I would still present. People looked surprised, but they agreed. When it was my turn, I stood up with nothing but a whiteboard marker and my notes. I walked them through the entire concept, drew out visuals, broke down the data from memory, and answered every question they threw at me. I don't think I've ever been more locked in. My voice shook at first, but then I hit a rhythm, and it just flowed. After I finished, there was this silence in the room. Then my boss started clapping. A few others joined in. One of the senior leaders told me it was one of the most authentic and confident pitches they'd seen in years. They said that anyone can read off slides, but it takes real mastery to present without them. 2 weeks later, I got the promotion. When I told my parents, my mom congratulated me, but my dad just smirked and said, "See, maybe breaking that thing was the best thing that could have happened." He framed it like he had done me a favor. I didn't even respond. I just nodded, but inside, I felt this mix of rage and relief. Rage because he still couldn't admit what he did, and relief because despite him trying to sabotage me, I had won anyway. Since then, I've kept more distance from him. I don't bring my work around him, I don't share my wins, and honestly, I've started to accept that he might never be capable of being genuinely supportive. That hurts, but it's also freeing. Because if I could survive that night, I can survive whatever else he tries to throw at me. I'm not saying it doesn't sting. Every time I see the dented laptop in the corner of my room, I feel that wave of betrayal again. But I've also started to see it as proof that even when someone tries to break me, I can still rise. It's not the path I would have chosen, but it's the one I walked, and it made me stronger. Maybe one day I'll tell him directly how much damage he's caused, not just to a piece of hardware, but to the trust between us. But for now, I just needed to get this off my chest.